Welcome to the Morris Arboretum. It is home to over 13,000 types of plants and trees from around the world, including North America, Europe, Africa, and Asia. There is much to see in every season of the year: spring, summer, fall, and winter. As you move about the 92 acres of hills and trails, you can hear the creek and the brook babbling and the birds singing and chirping. You can also spot small animals scurrying about. Today, we invite you to go off the beaten path and explore the animals and the wildlife that reside here at the Morris Arboretum. In many ways, the Morris Arboretum is like a hotel where animals can live all year long, or just for a season, or just for a day. For today's adventure, let's think about the Morris Arboretum as the hotel imagination for our animal and bird friends. Here we are at the Hotel Imagination. Let's see if we can find the desk clerk.
You rang? Well, hello. Welcome to the Hotel Imagination. I'm the desk clerk here. How can I help you?
Hello. Is it true that the Morris Arboretum is like a hotel for birds and animals?
Yes, that's true. We have luxury accommodations for birds, animals, fish. Our guests can stay for as long as they want. Some of our geese just come and stay for the season and then they move on. We have turtles who hatch their eggs and then they leave. And then we have birds who make their nests and raise their young. Some of our popular accommodations are the palatial pond. This is where our two beautiful swans stay year-round, and sometimes the geese drop in on them. Then we have the wild wetlands, which is like a landing strip for migratory birds. When they are journeying from their northern climate to their southern climate, they stop here and take a rest. And of course, when they're on their return trip to the north, they stop here again. Then we have the creekside cottage. Our creekside cottage has seasonal visitors. They swim in the creek or they live on land.
Your accommodation seems so different from the usual hotel. Do you think that we could take a tour and see for ourselves?
Sure. Why don't you take a walk down to our palatial pond, and our hotel concierge will be there to meet you. She'll give you a personal tour.
Oh, hello. I am the concierge for the Hotel Imagination. And I am here today to welcome you to one of our most beautiful accommodations, the palatial pond. Notice the beautiful landscape surrounding this special habitat that has been so carefully tended by our talented gardeners. There are tall trees, bushy shrubs, and long-leaf plants of varying hues of green. How many different shades of green can you find? We have many different kinds of animals who live here in the pond area. Some of them live here permanently, all year long. Others come seasonally. And there are some who just come in for a quick visit. But you know, there are some who cause a problem. Let's go see if we can find some. Oh, look! Here comes flora and fauna. They are our resident swans. They are sisters. But they are not the first swans to live here. When the pond was built in 1905, over 100 years ago, Elsa and Lohengrin were the first swans to live here in the pond for many years. They were male and female, and every spring they had a bevy of cygnets. In the wild, swans live for about 12 years, but in captivity, they may live as long as 30 years, and they are mates for life. Flora and fauna are mute swans, but in name only. They actually communicate with each other. Our swans do not fly since their wings have been clipped. This is done to keep them safe in the pond. They have a special way of scaring off predators by fluffing up their back feathers. This makes them look bigger than they really are. Do they scare you? What do you think they eat and drink? First of all, swans have no teeth. Instead, they have a gizzard that grinds their food before the swan can swallow it. Our swans are cared for by a special person called a swan keeper. She feeds them every day some delicious green vegetables like romaine lettuce. But she tells us that they especially love organic spring mix. They also have a bucket of pellets from which they can get a quick snack. What do you think would happen if you tried to pet the swans? Remember, they do not have any teeth. But be careful not to get too close because they have very long necks and can reach out to peck and pinch your skin. Sometimes the pond has guests that cause a problem from time to time. When the geese drop in, the swans get very defensive and chase them away. The geese eat a lot, create a mess, and may even contaminate the water supply. Mallard and wood ducks might share in taking some food from the pellet bucket. When the ducks migrate here each season, the swans don't seem to care and make room for them. Can you tell the difference between the mallard and wood ducks? Look for the duck with the beautiful iridescent green and blue round heads, white ring around its neck, brown breast, and orange bill. That's a male mallard duck. There are many more mallard ducks here than wood ducks. The male wood duck has a green crested head with bold white markings on its dark brown body, and it has a black, white, and orange bill. It is one of the most beautiful ducks. The female wood duck makes its nest high up in a tree cavity or in a wood duck bird box high up in a tree, close to a creek or a pond. Some nests are about 50 feet off the ground. After the wood ducks hatch from the eggs, within 1 day, they tumble out of the nest and walk to the water with the mother duck. And amazingly, they don't get hurt. They don't begin to fly for about 8 or 9 weeks. Female ducks are less showy, with somber brown and tan speckled plumage or feathers. This is important so that she is camouflaged when she is sitting on her nest. The mother duck quacks louder than the male duck, so her ducklings can hear her. Can you find a mallard duck or a wood duck? The swans never leave the pond. They live here even in the winter. The only time the swan keeper takes them out is when the pond freezes over. Our pond has bubblers to create movement, so the water circulates and won't freeze so easily. Once, the swan keeper protected the swans because she saw coyote tracks and feared the swans might be in danger. The swans are quite content to live with the frogs, fish, and snakes in the pond. Often we find snakes just sunbathing on the rocks on a warm spring day. They are cold-blooded reptiles and need the sun to get warm. None of the snakes are seriously venomous or poisonous, but the water snake could cause a nasty bite. Did you ever see a snake with his tongue sticking out? That's because the snake uses his tongue to smell, sense food and enemies, and find mates. They do not have a nose or eyelids. The northern water snake feeds heavily on fish and amphibians, swallowing its prey alive. The snakes come out of hibernation in late March to April. Females give birth between late August and early October to live young, having anywhere between 12 and 36 baby snakes at a time. Do you get afraid of snakes? Well, even snakes get afraid sometimes. Large birds, raccoons, and coyotes attack and eat snakes. We even have special guests come to visit the pond on occasion. Usually we find the great white egret silently sitting in the wetlands, but sometimes we might see one proudly perched on the island in the middle of the swan pond. Oh, here he is now. You'd think he was king of the pond. He eats mainly fish, frogs, and toads. It is sad to think that many of these beautiful birds were hunted and killed mainly for their feathers when hats with feathers were in fashion. Well, I hope you have had a great time visiting with the animal guests here at the palatial pond. Please come again. We hope to show you many more wonderful things of what the hotel imagination can offer you.
I'd really like to see your accommodations for the migratory birds. The palatial pond was wonderful, but now I would like to see what's available if I was just stopping by.
Ah, you must want to see the wetlands. Oh, we've got great accommodations down there. Why don't you take a walk down? The concierge will meet you down there, and she'll give you a personal tour.
Oh, hello again. I am so glad you decided to come and visit our wetlands. This is a home to many different kinds of animals. We also have a wide variety of birds that live here all year long. But I'll let you in on a little secret. The best time to come when the wetlands comes alive is in the spring. As you can see, we have many lush trees and a variety of berry-laden shrubs and bushes, and many water sources that make the wetlands of the Hotel Imagination at the Morris Arboretum a prime spot for wildlife. Oh, someone's on her way, and she's coming to tell us more about the animals that live at the wetlands. This is Naturalist Nan. Hi, Nan.
Good morning. Hi, welcome to the wild wetlands. I'm Naturalist Nan, and I'm here to show you a little bit about the wetlands at the Morris Arboretum, where many, many animals live part of the time or all of the time. Our wetlands are about 35 acres big.
The pond portion is about 2 acres. It is not very deep, less than 6 feet. However, there are some sections that are a little bit deeper so that animals like turtles, frogs, and maybe even some fish can overwinter in the deeper sections. In the spring and the fall, the Arboretum has a way to lower the water level to create mud flats for the migratory shorebirds who prefer the water shallower. We often see lesser yellowlegs. We also see some great blue herons, as well as some egrets and green herons and sandpipers. Imagine going on a 9-day flight with no time to sleep and nothing to eat. That's the trip of the bar-tailed godwit. He holds the record for the longest non-stop flight of any bird, flying for almost 7,000 miles without rest. So you know our wetlands are a welcome stop on many birds' migratory journey. Here's a group of Canada geese who just stopped by for a little cooling swim on a hot summer day. Turtles are often seen basking on logs above the surface of the water. That's because they're cold-blooded, and as they bask in the sun, it helps to warm them up and regulate their body temperature. It also helps to dry out their shells and prevent the growth of algae or other things that might attach themselves.
Come quickly. I think I see some turtles. Let's look. Look, there they are, sitting on the log. Can you see them?
Some turtle species that call our wetlands home are red-eared sliders, eastern painted turtles, and snapping turtles. Snapping turtles are frequently seen just as a snout and a pair of eyes above the surface of the water. You might look and think it's a bit of a stump, but if you have your binoculars handy, it's easy to spot that it's the nose of a snapping turtle. Turtles lay their eggs on dry land above the flood line. After the eggs hatch, they make their way down to the water. That's why you see the roadway sign, "Slow Turtle Crossing," on the road leading to the visitor center, because sometimes in the spring you can see tiny little turtles attempting to cross the road. We avoid them or help them get from one side of the road to the other. The only land turtle we have at the Arboretum is the eastern box turtle, and that can be found anywhere in the Arboretum, not just the wetland. So keep your eyes peeled, and you might be lucky enough to spot one. The wetlands are also home to many frogs and toads. Frogs and toads are both amphibians. However, the frogs spend most of their time in the water, and the toads spend most of their time on land. I hope someday that you will get to visit our American bullfrog sculpture in the Morris Arboretum, right near the Dawn Redwood Grove. Here at the Morris Arboretum wetlands, we have documented over 169 different species of bird. The Morris Arboretum has installed bluebird, wood duck, kestrel, and bat boxes in the wetland area. We hope to encourage more birds to make the wetlands their home. Wetland ecosystems serve as a nursery for wildlife. The habitat provided by the plants and other wetland features make it a safe place to nest and raise young. Here are some of the birds that we see most frequently in our wetlands: blue jays, tufted titmouse, a white-breasted nuthatch, the American robins, and we do frequently see red-winged blackbirds and hear their call all over the wetlands. You might also spot a northern mockingbird. He has over 200 songs in his repertoire. He even sometimes can mimic frogs and toads. So if you think you hear a frog or toad, you might just be hearing the northern mockingbird. Is that a Baltimore Oriole? Doesn't he know we're Phillies fans? Not only do the wetlands serve as an important habitat for birds, animals, and insects, but they also provide a service for us. The wetlands catch and filter groundwater and rainwater, which ultimately becomes our drinking water, and then they help to prevent flooding during heavy rains and storms. The water from our wetlands empties into the Wissahickon Creek, then the Schuylkill River, next the Delaware River, and eventually the Atlantic Ocean. We should do all we can to protect our wetlands. Thanks again for visiting the wetlands at the Morris Arboretum. So come back again. There's always something to see in every season of the year.
So you've seen the palatial pond, the wild wetlands. Is there anything else I can show you?
I was wondering if you had any other accommodations.
Actually, we do have one more, and it's called the Creekside Cottages. You can take a stroll down there, and our concierge, who you know well by now, will be there to give you a personal tour.
Thanks so much. I look forward to seeing the cottage.
Hello, welcome again. As you remember, I am the concierge for the Hotel Imagination, and I am here to welcome you to the Creekside Cottage, one of our most bucolic accommodations. This is the porch where Lydia Morris, who owned this vast piece of land, along with her brother John, she would come here on a warm afternoon to sit in the breeze and listen to the babbling brook and listen to the insects and watch the little chipmunks skip along and just watch for any animal guests she might be able to find. Let's step inside and see where Lydia used to serve tea with her friends. This is where Lydia would have her tea parties with her friends, because it was so nice and cool and calm by the brook. She would serve tea in a big silver teapot, and then she used these beautiful porcelain cups and saucers. Close your eyes and imagine sitting here with Lydia, having tea with her and her friends. Listen. Do you hear the clinking of the cups and the soft laughter as they chat while having a sip of tea on a balmy afternoon? The first log cabins in America were actually built by Swedish settlers along the Delaware River. When William Penn came here, the English settlers adopted this style of building as well. This cabin was built in the Adirondack style by John and Lydia Morris in 1908, more than 100 years ago. The logs are hewn from the eastern hemlock, which is the state tree of Pennsylvania. You can see one of these tall trees right down the path. Note the tiny hemlock cones, which are really flowers of this tree. The mantel and hearth are made from a special rock, Wissahickon schist, that was found along the Wissahickon Creek. The chimney was built using hundreds of giant pebbles called creek stones. The bubbling brook in front of the cabin is called the East Brook and winds its way down to the Wissahickon Creek. We can find many animal guests living in and around this cooling brook. Let's go outside. I think naturalist Nan is coming to tell us about the animals who live in this bucolic habitat. Here comes naturalist Nan. Hi, Nan.
Boy, what lovely accommodations here at the Creekside Cottage. I'll be telling you a little bit about the animals that you might see here around the cottage.
First, let's take a look at some of our permanent guests. Do you hear that drumming beat? It's the sound of a woodpecker, rapidly moving his head while his beak keeps pecking the tree bark. Do you know why a woodpecker pecks? The woodpecker pecks for several reasons: to mark his turf, to attract a mate, and to warn off predators. And of course, to find food. He loves eating bugs and insects that he finds with his beak in the crevices of the bark. Let's listen to some of the different kinds of sounds that he can make with his beak and with his voice. Many white-tailed deer used to roam the Arboretum, but a new fence has helped to keep out these unwanted visitors. They were unwanted because they used to eat trees, leaves, plants, and twigs. They eat almost 5 to 15 pounds of this browse in a day. Apparently, roses are like chocolate to a deer, and they would eat the roses, thorns and all. The mother deer, the doe, and the baby fawns certainly were cute, but they did have a voracious appetite. The fence certainly seems to have made a difference. Other permanent guests, like our chipmunks and groundhogs, share the underground world. They both burrow in the ground to make their homes. While groundhogs hibernate in the winter, the chipmunks wake up every few weeks to snack on the nuts that they collected in the fall. Sometimes we see a chipmunk scamper by with his cheeks puffed out. The stretchy skin on his cheeks expands and he can hold up to 7 acorns in his mouth at one time. Listen to the sounds that they can make. Pretty amazing. It looks like he's washing his face. Oh no, he's just eating a peanut. I'm sure you've heard that expression, how much wood can a woodchuck chuck? Well, that's just another name for a groundhog. And we have several that live near the Creekside Cottage. Did you know that a groundhog can move up to 700 pounds of dirt when he makes his burrow? Their dens are important for other animals too. Red foxes, gray foxes, possums, raccoons, and skunks take up residence in their burrows. So, around the Creekside Cottage, you could see many of those different animals here also. We also have crayfish who live here in the creek, but they're hard to find. You have to flip over a few rocks before you're likely to spot one. They're a bit unusual because they have 4 pairs of walking legs to help them move about. You would think they knew how to swim. Not so. They thrust their tails to rapidly propel themselves backwards. Yes, backwards through the water. Maybe that's why they're so hard to catch. They look just like a giant insect, or maybe just like a lobster. I wonder how much they would cost per pound. Other permanent guests live in the creek. One unusual insect we frequently see at the Creekside Cottage is called a water strider. It's an insect that seems to be magically walking on water. How can they do this without sinking? The insect has thousands of tiny hairs on their very long legs, and they're able to move very quickly with a rowing motion. We have fun just watching them glide by. Our creek is also home to many frogs and toads. Frogs spend most of their lives in water, and toads spend most of their time on dry land, often in your yard or garden. Our toads hop on short, stubby legs. Frogs' legs are longer and slender, and they can jump much farther. They also have webbing, and it helps them to be good swimmers. If you really want to tell them apart, frogs have moist, slimy skin, while toads have dry, bumpy skin. One last fun fact. The bulging eyes of most frogs allow them to see in front, to the sides, and partially behind them. When a frog swallows his food, it pulls its eyes down into the roof of its mouth, and its eyes help push the food down its throat to its stomach. Sometimes you can see a large bird flying over the creekside cottage. It's a turkey vulture. Turkey vultures play a very important part in our ecosystem. They eat dead and rotting animals. They clean up our environment for us. They have an amazing, incredible sense of smell. They can smell dead things from miles away when they're high in the air. Turkey vultures are known for the 3 Ps. Sometimes they pee on their legs to keep them cool. They also puke on predators to get them to go away, and they sometimes have to pick their own noses with their claws. Here at the Creekside Cottage, we have animals that live on the land, in the water, and also we see them in the air.
And thank you to all of you for coming to the Hotel Imagination. I hope you enjoyed listening to Naturalist Nan as much as I did. Please be sure to come again to see what else the Hotel Imagination has to offer you.
Thank you so much for visiting us here at the Hotel Imagination at the Morris Arboretum. You had a chance to see our 3 accommodations, the palatial pond, the creekside cottage, and the wild wetlands. You also got to see the animals and the birds who live here. Some animals and birds live here permanently. Some come seasonally, some just drop by, and others were unwanted, as you already saw. We're open all year round. Come anytime and use your imagination. Goodbye, friends. Hope to see you again soon.